Hey, peace, y'all. It's your boy Saj, man. We here doing something new today. Podcast style type view. My boy Shane gave me some good insight, and I feel like this is a good way to, add more value to everyone that watches. So welcome to the podcast. It's episode 1. So today, kind of the topic would be renting versus buying. Is buying always a better situation, or is buying always better than renting? And, to me, that's not always the case, depending on the person and their current circumstance and situation. Oftentimes renting is better than buying. It really depends on short term and long term, in my opinion. Like, if you don't plan on staying in that area for more than 2 to 3 years and you're probably going to be gone, probably renting will be best for you. Regarding debt to income ratio, credit score, overall net income, if you're just not positioned yet to purchase a property, it's just honestly probably better to rent until you get into that position to where you can afford the property when you buy it. Because like when you rent, that covers everything for the most part. Some apartment complexes, make you pay for your own utilities and different double or triple net leases and stuff like that. But typically everything is covered when you rent and you don't have to worry about anything. When you buy, you got to pay the mortgage for where you're staying. You got to pay the utilities. You got to pay maybe HOA fees. You got property tax. When you buying the house, you got closing costs, you got seller agent fees, buyer agent fees, escrow fees, loan origination fees, holding costs, transfer tax. It's a lot that go into it. So if you're not in the position yet, don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself out about it. That's my personal opinion. But if you are in that position, purchasing does make sense for you, because instead of you just paying rent and the money kind of is just going to someone else, you actually are building up equity into a property to where, let's say within 5 or 10 years, say maybe you got married or your family's expanded and you wanted a bigger property. Now when you leverage your current property to sell it, you've gained equity. The value typically goes up in real estate. Yeah, there's been some downturns, 2008, COVID, stuff like that, but those are outliers. Typically, the price of the properties go up. So if you're getting more money with building more equity, now when you go in to sell your house, you got more money and more purchasing power to possibly buy a bigger house, depending on how inflation and things like that are working in the, county you're in. So we was looking up some numbers, right? In New Castle County right now, the average rental price for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house is between $2,200 to $2,500 a month, right? And you could say it's a lot, but that's just the median numbers. For the same house, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, it'd be around 350,000 is the median range for that type of house. The average mortgage is $2,100 to $2,400 a month for a 30-year loan. And that's with interest rates being around 5.95 to about 6.95%. Like we said before though, with the rent being between typically $2,200 to $2,500, that's everything. So that's the flat rate that you're paying to have access for everything to be paid, versus the $2,100 to $2,400 a month for purchasing a property. You also got to counter utilities, light bill, gas or electric bill, HVAC, electricity, sewer, trash company, property taxes. There's other things that you have to also account for that you will not have to account for with renting. So it's really all about your odds and what do you think is more favorable for you in your current position at the moment. I tell a lot of my clients, the last thing you want to feel is bottleneck from a mortgage or from purchasing a property. You don't want to feel like you can't even breathe financially because of how much bills that you might have to pay. I feel like long-term home ownership is the best way to go, But you also don't want to put yourself in an unfavorable position if you're not ready yet, because then that just leads to a lot of other things that build more stress into your life. And you don't want to feel like, your life is just on the brink's end and you standing off a cliff and you about to jump off because there's so much different things going on in your life. So those are my takes on renting versus buying. Is really on the person, the current situation and circumstance. And none is wrong or right. It just all depends on you. So for our second topic, it would be, should you do the renovations that you know you need to do for your property before you sell it? And now there's no wrong or right answer for this either, right? So when you're if you have renovations that need to get done to a property, it's really multiple ways you could go about it. You could sell your property as is, and say if it does need repairs, they're gonna get less than what the house is actually worth, because someone is gonna have to make that investment to bring the property up to market value so that it's actually worth the value that the house is listed for. Versus if you do the repairs yourself, that, well, not yourself, get a licensed contractor, or if you know how to do those type of things, you go do what you need to. But do the repairs. And now when you go list the property, you can get basically market price, if not maybe a little bit more, depending on the type of renovations you did. But it all comes down to the ROI, your return on investment. If you're going to have to put in maybe 20 to 30 grand in repairs to only get 30 grand more for your property, it really doesn't make sense to actually do the renovations. You should probably just sell it as is, get your profit or whatever it is for your situation at closing and move on to your next situation. Versus if you got to put in 20 to 30 grand, but that 20 to 30 grand is going to gain maybe 70 to 100 grand in equity for your house for you to list it. It might be worth it if you have the capital to do so. It all depends on the person's situation, their current income levels, current debt levels, and their current obligations that they have to do. Some people may pull out a home equity line of credit to do the repairs, but then now it's basically like you got two mortgages to pay. You got your current mortgage and you got to pay back that home equity line. So it really has to make sense. You don't want to do something that you're not fully comfortable with doing, especially if you're not experienced. All right, y'all. So these were just, quick little episode, quick breakdown as we go through this and continue to build this real estate brand. We're going to have more value and more insight for you guys to watch and to consume, so you guys can make better financial and educational decisions when it comes to, getting into real estate, whether if you're buying, renting, investing, or leasing. Either option is great. It all depends on you. So if you guys got any questions, you need a buyer's consultation, you need a seller's consultation, just to kind of see where you stand, so we can see where, if you're ready now or if you need to revisit within the next 6 to 12 months, we can do that, and you'll know exactly what you need to do with an executed plan that serves you at the best rate. So feel free to contact me, y'all, at any time, and I appreciate y'all watching today. Have a great one. Peace.